This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV, the
News-free Dixie.
news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Oh, you might say that on
We were so close to the forest that we really didn't see the trees. Everybody had their own thing, but then when you begin to listen to people talk, you begin to realize the magnitude of this individual and all the stuff that he did. And a lot of us just know a part of it, but I think once we all come together and put it together, we will really find out this guy was like a prophet that was walking on this planet, man. And we didn't know that because he was so human with us, but the stuff that he did, it was fantastic, man. Yeah.
That's right. So you said we should start like a society?
Yes.
A GREgory society?
A GREgory society, and put it together and began to preserve all the stuff that he did. And see, the beautiful thing about it is this is not a methodological individual. This guy was documented. There are videos of a lot of the stuff that he did, and we could, put that all together.
Hollywood couldn't even make up nobody like GREgory.
Huh?
They couldn't make up nobody like GREgory. Hollywood, they couldn't make up nobody like him. And like you said, because we got the documentation, we know that he existed. But if you told somebody this guy did all this thing in one lifetime, they'll say, hell no.
I know it.
He don't exist.
But I it's crazy. He's appearing in different shows. The real GREgory, and it costs $25 or less to come and see him. Joe Martin is doing a show of him, and it costs $50, $75, $100 to hear an imitator of the person.
Yes, sir.
He talked about that how he it was on Broadway. He's getting at 10,000. I believe 10,000 a show when he first got on Broadway.
Yeah.
With John Legend.
Yeah.
He sounded just like your brother, man. Breaking it down.
I was down at the a couple of weeks ago, shortly after that, the riots broke out in St. Louis. Not riots, the demonstration broke out in St. Louis. Had a bunch of ministers down this place called Kina Plaza, and they were discussing what they needed to do. So the guy recognized me and said, "Aren't you GREgory?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what's your opinion about what's going on down here?" I said, "Down here? Today?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "We got two world leaders, one in Washington, D.C., one in North Korea, and jointly they are talking about annihilating somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 500 million people with nuclear weapons. And y'all concerned about some people who are uptight and broke some windows in the Central West End? Y'all got to be joking, man."
Wow.
I said, these ministers need to be in Washington, D.C. and North Korea. Stopping the escalation of this nuclear war that these two people seem to be bent on starting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He sounded just like your brother, man. He's just like, I'm telling you, it's like it's you, it's him coming through you or something. Do people tell you? I know people be telling you that a lot. Like, I mean, even when you talk about stuff and
We have.
how you bring,
Mannerisms.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah. I was up in Kansas City
Even how he did that.
You're gonna make me put my fans under my seat.
No. You do it need to be you, man. It's amazing.
Look, we were in Kansas City. My nephew, who's a comic, was doing a tribute to Dick.
I wish I could have went to that.
And cat took me out to lunch before we went over to the show, dinner before we went to the show. And we were at this place, and it was a nice restaurant, and the food was so reasonable. 2 meats, 2 vegetables, bread, and a drink, and it was like $8.99.
Wow.
And when I had the guy to put the 2 meats on my plate, the cat said, "You eat meat?" I said, "Dick Gregory's dead. Now you think I'm gonna follow the diet of a dead man?" Now you're mad.
You got everybody start laughing.
No. He's dead. I'm still alive. I'm eating what I'm eating.
I heard that. Man, it's working out for you. You look good, man. You say 81?
80.
80,
Turned
wow.
80 in September. I said, "Boy, you look good for your age." I said, "Everybody with cataracts tell me the same thing."
Well, you are natural. Where can people see you perform? Like, where do you normally perform?
I give shows like the show that we're having at Harris Stowe on November the 4th.
Okay.
We're having 6 local comics. They'll each be doing like about 15 minutes a piece, and then I come as the main comic, and I'll do about an hour show.
Wow.
after they get-
So this is like I know I read about y'all want to start a first annual Dick Gregory comedy show, or is this part of it?
Well, we're gonna do more than that. Actually, what I'm trying to work with the family to do is gonna be, I don't know if this will be the name of it, but it'll be like a society for the preservation of the critical thinking of Dick Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have gone to different places around the country, there's a group of people that kind of show up at a lot of his events. And the thought of these people ceasing to do this because Dick died is tragic. And I think what we need to do is to put this group together and develop chapters all over the country and maybe all over the world.
Impressive. It's exciting.
We got the documentation of it. You know, it's not like people got to go and do research. It's there. We can get it off of YouTube, create a library, create this group, and you have a local group, and maybe every 2 or 3 years you have a big convention where the people meet. But the big thing is like I said the other day, yesterday, we were disciples of him. You know, we read his work, we listened to what he said, and he was like a teacher. Now it's time for us to cease being. We can no longer be disciples because Dick is dead. Our job now is to be like the apostles. Now we go and teach what we learned from him. And if we think that the only thing, he didn't teach us to be critical thinkers, then something's wrong with that. For instance, the 2 biggest amendments in the Constitution is the First Amendment, freedom of speech, Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Okay? Now you had that massive killing in Las Vegas. The president is not talking about putting a clamp on the Second Amendment. But you have some athletes who are tired of this hypocrisy in this country, and they're doing peaceful demonstration like kneeling. And now he's acting like he want to do a clampdown on the freedom of speech. Who's dying because of these guys are doing this? people are dying because of all these weapons that are out here, and people are learning how to talk. And one of the things that I said shortly after the shooting happened was the first time I missed my brother, cause
Right.
the first thing I would have done is got on the phone and say, tell me the real story. What is this?
I was thinking the same thing
Okay.
that morning. Yeah. Everybody, well, a lot of people
Right.
were.
And the first thing I said he probably would have said is this chump was dead before the shooting happened. Okay? He's a patsy. First of all, they got so many cameras in that area that if I look like I'm winning too much money, they come in and put me out.
Right.
So if that's the case, how did this cat be able to bring all this equipment in? You know, that type of arsenal, and no cameras red flagged this. And I mean, we have cameras that are automatic. They don't need anybody behind the cameras to say something wrong. The cameras will begin to pick up and cross-check and say, something's wrong with this. And then they're going to tell me that guard that got shot, said this cat shot through the door 50 or 100 times. What type of door can take that many bullets and not be blown open? Okay? But we got these people putting out this information, and if the right person come out and say it, we'll believe it. You know, I remember a story about this kid was told, say, anytime you get in trouble, just look up in the air and call on the higher power. It's out there, and it will come to your rescue. And this kid, growing up, he was about 22 or 23 years old, and he was doing some exercise up on this big bluff and got too close and slipped off and fell off this bluff. And it was a big backdrop. And his arm hooked on to a branch that was growing out of this area, and he was holding on this for dear life. And he remembered what his mother said. And it was about 12 noon in the daytime. And he said, is there anybody out there? Is there any power out there that can help me? And he said, and all of a sudden it got pitch black. And then in the sky, a little opening and a light shined down. And the voice said, did you call on me? And he said, are you the person out there who's going to help me? He said, yes, I'm the power that's going to help you. He said, will you save my life? He said, yeah. He said, but I have to ask you some questions. And the guy said, what is it? He said, do you believe? He said, yes, I believe. Do you wholeheartedly believe? He said, yeah. Do you really believe? He said, yeah. He said, you've been saved. Let the branch go. The cat looked up and said, is there anybody else out there? Because sometimes, I said it today, sometimes things don't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, regardless of who it is who says it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't sound right, it needs to be questioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're talking about, people are now saying, well, we saw gunfire coming from other areas. And then the other thing they talked about, you got massive gunfire, and they say it took what? Over a half hour for the police to respond in Las Vegas? Oh, you gotta be joking. You can throw a firecracker, a small firecracker pop on, and you'll be surrounded by people.
Right.
You know, so no, don't come up and tell me that it took that long for the people to respond. I remember about the Kennedy assassination. They told you that the route of Kennedy's trip was not decided on until close to the day of the trip. Well, if that's true, why would the assassin get a job in that exact area 45 days before that? Like, that makes sense. If I'm a sniper, I don't need 45 minutes. 45 days to get ready for anybody. All I need is 10 minutes and I'll go somewhere, set myself up, and pop somebody out. You need 45 days in a book deposit and you don't even know if the man is going to come down that rock. But they talk to us and tell us this, and we believe it. And I'm saying Dick was I call him a critical thinker. Most people look at a box and they don't realize a box has 6 sides, 4 around it, a top and a bottom. So which means if you look at a box 9 out of 10 times, you can only see one of the 6 sides. Dick had the somehow ability to take a box and make it appear to be like a ball and then spin it. And when it spins, it's going around where he's seeing everything at the same time. So then he integrates all of this and then he comes out with what he thinks he saw. And that's what he was able to relate to us, because when he would talk to us about something, he would talk to us about this sphere that he was looking at. And we're amazed because we just looking at that one of the 6 sides, and that's how he was able to amaze us. But we were supposed to learn how to do that. And then once we learn how to do this, we do the spinning, and then we're able to go out and talk the same way Dick did. He didn't have any special abilities. He just used a lot of abilities that we all have. But we sit back and we would rather somebody tell us something than go out and do the investigation.
Right.
And then once, the beauty about Dick is that once people realized that he was that type of individual, then people from all over the country was calling him, giving him information. I got this, I can't talk about it, but let me tell you what's going on. When he got that information about the FBI had issued an order to kill him in Chicago, the FBI didn't call him, but somebody associated with the FBI told him that there's been a hit put on you by the FBI. And then he went and checked and found out. And because they were embarrassed, they backed off. And like he said that there are certain things that you have to participate in. You cannot sit back and just watch people do things. If all of us, if you take 1,000 people, and if 1,000 people just did 1/10 of what GREgory did, if you multiply 1,000 times 1/10, you're equal to what that brother was doing. And I'm just talking about 10 different people just going out, looking at information. And that's why I say if we're able to put together a type of society that was interested in learning about the critical thinking of GREgory and teach people, a lot of stuff that's going on in this country wouldn't happen, because before this little game that they play with people would get underway, people would be criticized, say, no, you can't do this. Why are we tolerating a person in our White House to do and say the things that they doing, that the guy is doing? For instance, I live in the Central West End. Nobody would be allowed to come out who be a guest of mine to be able to come out and urinate on my lawn. The reason for it is that that's a reflection on me, because that's my house. And people would look at me and say, well, what type of guy are you that would allow somebody to do that? Well, this is America, and the whole world is looking at this man just pissing on America. And then they turned around and tried to justify it. Like it's almost to say, oh, you know, he has a massive bladder problem, and that's the way he is. You know, what was it, the story with kids about the king or somebody with no clothes?
Yeah, the emperor with no clothes.
The emperor with no clothes. And they tried to justify that he had clothing. No, he hadn't had clothing. The emperor didn't have clothes, and stopped playing this game thinking that the world doesn't understand that. And the other thing that we have to understand is Eastern cultures are different from ours. In World War II, when those pilots left Japan coming to bomb Pearl Harbor, they knew they were never going back home again. They knew they only had enough gas to get them to Pearl Harbor and bomb Pearl Harbor. That was a suicide mission. They were called kamikaze pilots. That's part of their culture. They do that. Or if they embarrass their family, they had this thing where they fall on a sword. Okay? The most dangerous person in the world is somebody who's not afraid to die, because you can't threaten them. So we're over there saber rattling with the Eastern culture. And when this man says, we will reduce you to ashes, he's not playing with you. And when you talk about nuclear weapons will never develop to be used. They were developed as a deterrent. And now with this president talking about we need to increase our nuclear arsenal 1,000-fold, you a joke, man. 1,000-fold for what? The only reason you want to increase them 1,000-fold is to have them manufactured, and your buddies who are manufacturing will make a fortune. I mean, here's a guy that's probably gone to his billionaire buddies and say, man, do you know I now control trillions of dollars, and we can decide what direction this money goes in? And they playing all these type of games. You're gonna get a lady whose background is Amway to run your education department? What are we gonna do? Raise money in the school system by selling soap and toothpaste? You know, and wash detergent? I mean, this is the biggest joke in the world. The sad thing about our system of government is the janitor, the man who cleans the toilet in the White House, has to have more qualifications than the man who's running the presidency. Because the presidency, all you have to have is be of a certain age, be a citizen of this country. The guy that cleans the toilet's got to know what type of tile is on that floor. He has to know what type of chemicals can be used and what type of chemicals you can't use to damage it. And this is a low-level janitor that actually has to have more qualifications than the man who's president. The guy who's Secretary of State.
Tillerson.
Yeah. Who ran Exxon. Okay. He didn't get that by popular vote. This kid had to have all kinds of business qualifications in order to run one of the biggest corporations in the world. The only corporations Donald Trump has ever ran is the ones that he owned. And things being in bankruptcy, and he's being sued, all kinds of stuff. And there was a story about him, said he was meeting with 10 of his investors. And one of the investors said, well, you know, this situation is really bad. Because in this last deal that you did, I lost $10 million. And Donald Trump's answer was, could have been worse. And the second guy said it, and the third guy, and each of them lost millions and millions of dollars. And each time when they would explain to him how much money they lost, his answer was, it could have been worse. And after all 10 of them talked about how much money they lost, they said, would you please explain to me how this could have been worse? And Donald Trump's answer was, it could have been my money. Could have been worse.
Wow.
Okay. And, but it's amazing how this country, who is supposed to be sophisticated, will tolerate the stupidity that's going on in the White House. Now, don't get me wrong. 8 years ago, if they'd have been saying these things about Obama, we would have understood that racism and hate would make white people lie and say things about Obama. They didn't say things like that. This cat, eventually history will write and talk about how great a president this guy was. Now, black folks are uptight because they want to say that, well, he didn't do anything that much in a sense for black people. I think he did, but we have to understand Obama didn't get elected to be president of the black people of the United States. He got to be president of the United States, and that's what he had to do. And let's face it, he went to the same school that the other president. He's educated at Harvard. Those are white thinking universities. So when you educated that way, that's how you come out. If I go to a football camp, I do not come out thinking baseball.
Right.
Okay? I come out thinking the way I was taught. And all the problem solving he has ever been exposed to, he learned from those schools. So he's gonna come out and deal with this. But now, here's a guy who has basically had a free hand, a rich daddy, and giving him the impression that he's the greatest thing since buttermilk. And I say that because I don't even like buttermilk. Okay? So, but this guy has come in and talked about just turning everything around. And when you listen to him, he says, I am going to undo everything that Obama did. No, you cannot change history. You cannot change what happened. He said, now you can rewrite some things. But what Obama did will be on record that he did these things. And the stupid things that you are doing now, please understand, your grandkids and your great-grandkids will understand what a nut you are. Because these things you're doing are ridiculous. And you out there placating to all these people in rural America. And what gets me is that rural America, don't you understand the damage that he's doing to you. I mean, what this guy is doing right now will take years to undo. You know, it's like me throwing infected mosquitoes into a room and they come in and bite 10 people. That's what we see. But we don't see those 10 going out, those 10 people interfacing with 10 people apiece. Now 100 people have been exposed to what the mosquito did, and we still don't even know that you got bit by a mosquito. And then those 100 people go out and meet with 1,000 people, and then all of a sudden they say, you were bit by an infected mosquito. And all those people have been exposed to this. So they're looking at this man in the White House and think that he's anti-black. As far as this country is concerned, we have no power, we have no money. So then who are you taking stuff from? If you taking stuff and I don't have anything, you gotta be taking it from the people who have it. And you pretending that you're taking it from me. So,
Wow.
you know, like I say, this stuff about, you know, here's a man in your cabinet that called you a moron, and you said, I'm not a moron, I don't believe he said it. But if he did say it, let's go take an IQ test. No. He didn't say you were intelligent. The IQ test is to show you how intelligent you are. Okay, morons don't take IQ tests. Morons take moron tests to see how stupid you are. You know, and you already done proved to him by saying, let's take a test, because the test for a moron, not to test how smart you are, it's to test how the mental problems you have, you know. And like I say, he goes through this stuff over and over again. I mean, what type of president would ask the question, can you pardon yourself? Okay. And he asked that question.
Even Richard Nixon knew he couldn't do it. He had to resign.
And what he needs to do is he needs to thoroughly understand what happened to Richard Nixon. Shortly before he had to resign, the military gave orders that we no longer take questions from the White House. We take orders from the White House. And that's the military. And they never called it a military coup. But the military said this man is desperate. At this point, we no longer take it. And the other thing, we talk about this man having his hands on the nuclear button. Does the president carry that box? Who carries the box?
Some guy they selected from military, right?
Yeah. That's the cat that has his hands on the button. It ain't the president. He's not the one carrying the box.
So,
Right. That's the cat you gotta be worried about.
He got the codes.
He got the box. He's the one that's carrying the box, not the president. We out there looking at him. That's the man that got the box. Not the, you know. He got to turn around and tell this guy, bring me the box. I ain't bringing you nothing. Mr. Moran, you failed that test you took. You know. And Tilliston, I mean, here's a guy that decided, I am not going to mess my reputation up by denying something I said, because when this administration is over with, I got to be able to say that I'm a truthful person. Therefore, I am not going to outwardly admit that I called him a moron, but I'm not going to deny it. I'm just going to say, oh, and we don't need to discuss this. This is not something we're going to do. Did you or did you not call him a moron? Please, y'all. Why y'all getting uptight with me about me saying something that all of you all already know? So we're not going to discuss it? Yeah. I just came out of the water, I'm soaking wet, and you all gonna wanna ask me, was I in the water? I'm not gonna discuss this about whether or not I'm soaking wet. Too much breeze out here. I got to wait till I dry off, then I'll come out and discuss it with you. Yeah. But this guy's whole, his whole thing. And I guess if I didn't have to live under this system, it wouldn't matter. I would laugh and say, we are getting what we deserve as a country. You know, because we do all of these evil things. When we talk about weapons of mass destruction, we say that as if McDonnell Douglas is out making little cars for little kids. You know, we are the only country on this planet that have ever dropped a nuclear warhead or a bomb on any group of people. And we dropped it on Japan during World War II. We did not drop it on military installations. We dropped that bomb smack dab in the middle of those cities, which means there were hospitals, there were schools. But the biggest threat we had was not Japan. The biggest threat we had was Germany. We didn't drop no bomb on those people. And the question is, did we not drop a bomb on them because they look more like Americans than the Japanese? What they look like? You know, it's just unbelievable, some of the things that we have done. I've looked at pictures. I have looked at pictures of lynchings where all the people were standing around the tree and their pictures were taken. And they were part of a lunch mob. And you can go back and tell who were the people there. And nobody's ever said anything about what these people did. And I mean, they took their kids, it was like a Sunday event. That was somebody's mother, that was somebody's father, that was somebody's brother or sister, whatever. And they hung them people like they were animals. Today, the president is toying with the idea of putting out 11 million Hispanic people back to Mexico. First of all, almost the whole southern half of this country, it belonged to Mexico. And if you don't believe it, why do they have all these places like California and San Diego and Florida, why do they have Spanish names if they didn't belong to these people? But how is it that you feel comfortable taking a lady who's 40 years old, who was brought to this country when she was 2 days old, and you have no problem wanting to send her back to Mexico? On the other hand, every time there's some type of flooded animals, we have some flooded areas like hurricanes, we have organizations that go out and pick up the displaced animals, the dogs, the cats, and bring them into safety. Which means we're more concerned about stranded animals than we are about stranded people. And folks act like they don't have any problem with that. You're gonna take an individual who spent 39 of their 40-year life in a country, and you want to talk about putting them out of here. The second thing about it is the logistics that you have to do with transporting that many people anywhere. You know, with planes and buses, you know, and this guy just gets out there, yeah, we're going to put them back, What we need to do is find somebody of Native American descent and make them president, and then let him come up with the same idea. What we're gonna do is we're gonna send on the people whose family's origin does not date to this land here. So if you were part descendants of the Pilgrims, all of y'all are getting out of my country. You know, but it's pathetic that you get a bunch of people sitting down talking and smart mouthing, and they don't even realize what they're saying. Yeah, but it's really something, man.
Wow. There's a lot you had said in that, man. I mean, I was thinking about the A-bomb. I was thinking about Curtis LeMay, that guy who, he firebombed Tokyo and all this other place. He was like homicidal, but he was respected.
Yeah.
I mean, they respect people like him.
Well, I was in a psychology class when I was working for the Human Development Corporation. And, I was working for the Human Development Corporation, and I was like over field operation. And all the different programs, health programs and social programs and things like that, went through the districts that I was over. So the lady who was over the social service department thought it might be nice for me to sit in on some classes with her social workers that were in the different stations that I was over. So we were over at the Psychoanalytical Foundation here in St. Louis. It's located over on Lindell. I don't know if it's still there, but there was a psychologist who was over that program over there. I think his name was Kaplan or something. And each week he had a different subject that he talked about. But he didn't talk about the subject till we arrived that particular Monday when we sat in the class. So this particular Monday, he said, today's subject will be black homicide. So I immediately said, I think you need to go to another topic because first of all, I don't think you're qualified to talk about that subject. And even if you think you're qualified, I don't think you're going to be fair about it. So he said, well, Mr. Gregory, what do you mean you don't think I'll be fair? I said, as long as you discuss black homicide the same way you all deal with white homicide, I don't have a problem with it. I said, because all my life, all the homicidal maniacs in this country has been depicted as heroes, such as Jesse James, Al Capone, General George Custer. It has been proven that these guys are homicidal maniacs, but in my history book, they're depicted as heroes. So now, if you are going to talk about the people who create black homicide in our communities like the heroes, then I have no problem with you talking about it. But if you're not going to talk about them the same way we discuss Al Capone and Dillinger and all these other people who have been depicted in a sense as heroes, then I don't want to hear it. The professor said, well, what we'll do is we'll just move on to next week's topic. And he just dropped it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when the program was over, the lady who was head of our social department suggested to me that I not come to the class next week. Because she didn't have any problems listening to a person in her profession talk about these things, because as long as she wasn't critical of it, he was all right. I get tired of people coming into my community, in my house, with a title anything because they have a title. I'm going to tolerate what they say. Because if it doesn't sound right, I'm not going to sit there and listen to it. And I'm going to tell you either one or two things. You either stop talking about it, or I excuse myself from the meeting. Because if I sit there and listen and make it sound like I'm going along with you, I'm more guilty than you are. Because you're talking that garbage, but I'm the one that's sitting there with lace on the tables and fine china and fine silverware, eating your garbage like I'm enjoying it, and I'm not. Yeah.
Wow. That's something. You know what? I think about the A-bomb. It came from Truman. He from Missouri.
Yeah.
I mean, what type of person? He went to sleep at night, I think. He was able to get his 8 hours of sleep.
Sure.
When I worried about it.
He was able to go to sleep because he didn't look upon the people as being human. You know the story about that, about dropping that bomb. Right?
Oh, tell us the story. We like to hear
The
it.
story was that they said that you didn't need to drop the bomb on the people. He said what we needed to do was to take the ambassador to Japan out to the desert and test the weapon to let them see how destructive it was, and then put him on a plane and fly him home to tell his people that if they don't end the war, that we will drop this on him. And the other forces in the room say, no, Mr. President, see, you have to understand, Japan is not really our big threat right now. The Soviet Union is our threat. And we need to drop that weapon on Japan to show the Soviet Union just how insane we are and what extent we'll go to protect ourselves. So it really wasn't about the threat. We did that as a means of showing another white country, don't mess with us.
Because it would make, I won't say it made sense, but why not drop it on Russia instead of Japan?
Because Russia looks like them.
Right. That was the whole point. You didn't see the humanity in the people.
No.
That is deep. That's some crazy stuff, man.
They the Warhawks said, no, don't. I mean, and it's documented that this was said. That they said, take the ambassador, take him to the desert, let him see how destructive this bomb is. We'll test one, and then put him on a plane and send him home to tell his people, if you don't surrender, this is what they're going to drop. And they say, no.
Wow.
No, we ain't even worried about them little yellow people over there anymore.
So, like, what did, I guess, a guy named Robert Oppenheimer, he go along with it, or
Yeah.
he was okay with it?
Well, he was the one that helped develop it.
Yeah. I mean, it made mess with his mind, you think, later on? Or?
Oh, yeah. Anytime you are so deranged that you will make something like that, and understand, they have never declared a nuclear weapon a weapon of mass destruction. They do this little mustard gas and this little stuff and pretend like this is what we're talking about. And they know very well that a lot of that poison gas that's sold around the country is manufactured by the United States. They know that. We the ones that's doing it. Just like the lead paint. They didn't stop making lead paint.
Right.
Those companies still make lead paint. They just don't sell it in the United States. Okay. They sell it to other countries because it's okay for them.
I know. I would think about a couple of things. I was thinking about what people don't understand why North Korea and Iran are mad at us. You got to go back to the 50s. What they did with North Korea when they dropped the bombs, they had biological weapons with the bombs. Then you look at what we did to Iran. They overthrew their government because they want to control their oil.
Yeah.
And we did all that. I mean, I said we because we going to have to pay the consequences.
We got to stop saying them.
Right.
Because we sitting here smack dab in the middle of it.
Right.
Okay. If a little girl comes into this room and there's a pedophile in the room that goes up and plays with the girl.
Right.
If we don't do anything, we just as bad as the guy who's doing it.
He said silent is consent. Yeah.
And I was asked one time a question, what I thought about slavery. And I got some people upset because I said we were never slaves. And the guy said, well, wait a minute. What do you mean we were never slaves? I said, well, let me explain something. I said, if a 5-year-old boy is walking down the street and a man comes in and puts his hand in the little boy's pants, what do you call that man? He said, we call him a pedophile. I said, what do you call the child? And I say, do you name him after the person that's perpetrating the act on him? And he said, no. I said, that's right. Because that kid did not participate in the decision, okay? The people you are calling slaves did not agree to this type of action. So you don't name them after what was perpetrated on them. They were not slaves, they were victims. And I said, but you called them a slave and you identified, you actually defined what a slave was. And in your definition of a slave is you made him think he was less than human because you said he was 3/5 of a man. So then he fit the mold. Because freed black men, were not considered 3/5. So you created that rather than say that he was a slave. And then we walk around bragging about, yeah, my great-grandparent was a slave, my so-and-so. But don't nobody walk around bragging about anybody in their family being a victim of a pedophile.
Right.
So why do we feel comfortable saying that my grandmother, who lived on a plantation and who was raped and sodomized by the owner of that plantation, why do we go out and brag about we did something like that? Somebody was looking in this door. Can we just
Yeah.
let me see.
About you going to be in the Old Miss and trying to ask for that book. It's hilarious. I know that actually happened. I already know that actually happened.
Yeah, that's why I said. Had it come out while I was in school, boy, that would have been hilarious. See, because when I was at Notre Dame, the enrollment was 5,000. And there were 20, I wanted to say African American, but you bet not call us African Americans back in 1957. Matter of fact, you bet not even call us black on that time. We were Negroes, okay? So there were 20 Negroes on the campus of 5,000. I had the nerve to say to people when I was at Notre Dame, it was predominantly white. Somebody said, it was predominantly what? I said, predominantly white. You said the enrollment was 5,000. I said, yeah. And it was 20 of you guys on there. I said, right. Which means there was 4,980 white people on the campus and 20 of you are, right? Yeah. I said, okay, let's take a bottle and put 4,980 grains of salt in there, and then we'll take 20 grains of black pepper and throw it in and shake it up. What you gonna see? I said, okay, you're right. Notre Dame was all white music.
Make a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
But y'all came out like a lot of poverty, like, extreme poverty. How was y'all able to achieve what was instilling y'all from an early age to excel?
Well, when you're in poverty, you don't know what riches are. Okay. The only thing happens is that you get black people who work in white people's houses. Now, you wasn't working in poor people's houses. You were working in wealthy people's houses. So when you work in there, you pick up all these values, these name brand furniture and all this type of stuff. And you see real silverware and you see real china. Okay. On the other hand, white people who were in our condition wasn't exposed to things like that. So they saw paper plates. They saw plastic forks. Okay. And so what you do is you have a tendency to imitate the people you see. So if you don't see poverty, if you're out of poverty for a while, you begin to develop ideas of how you want to live and how you feel like you have to act. Nobody spoke any better English than a black butler or a black chauffeur. Matter of fact, they had social groups for people who worked in those professions. They have an organization called the Chauffeurs and Butlers, which was a social group. They had the West End Waiters, which was a social group. And you gotta remember, a waiter has to wear a white shirt and clean clothes every day to do his job, regardless of what condition he lived in. And I couldn't understand as a kid why there were so many lounges and bars, fancy bars in our neighborhood as a kid. Well, later on, I realized those places were our living rooms. Okay? That guy got 6 or 7 kids. He and his wife, that's 8 people, and they living in 2 or 3 rooms. How you gonna bring somebody to your house to socialize? So what happened is that lounge was the extension of his house where they met. Then when we got to the point where we started buying our own houses and our basements became raskellers, we had our own whiskey. We wanted to show our place off. So we didn't have to go to the lounges anymore. And then all of a sudden, those meeting places began to disappear because they wouldn't need it as much. But Dick, in his book, wrote, "Not poor, just broke." And he said being poor is a state of mind. Being broke is a condition of your pocket. Okay? When you saw the TV program, the Beverly Hillbillies, the Beverly Hillbillies bought all that poverty in their mind and mixed it in with all the money they had. And whereas we will win the lottery tonight, and we'll be acting like we've been rich all our life. Why? Because that's where our mind has been. Our mind is, we've been wanting to be over there. I tell people, they say, when you go out of town, what type of hotel do you stay in? I say, I stay at an average type of hotel. I don't stay in a luxury hotel. And they say, why? I say, because I never want to stay someplace that when I come back home, I have to feel like I'm living in a barn. Okay? Where I stay is either equivalent to my lifestyle at home or sometimes a little bit lower. Because I don't want to go somewhere and then come back and my fancy toilet in my house now begins to look like it's an outhouse because of where I've been staying. I hear people go to Las Vegas and it's amazing. They brag of how much money they spent, how much money they lost. I said, do you know what your house would look like if you spent that on your house on a daily basis, upkeep? You know, I mean, why you want to brag about? I mean, when I go into a casino and I look around and see all this fancy, it's obvious I'm the one that's paying for it.
Right.
Okay? Because they're going to take a percentage out of every dollar. So let's say they decide they have to keep 75 cents of every dollar that's gambled. That means the most you can win out of it is 25 cents of the dollars you make. So when I win $1, that means there's 3 other people sitting at that table that each lost a quarter apiece.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I'm taking from them. I'm not playing against the house. I'm playing against the guy sitting at the table with me. Because the house has already decided how much money they need, and they're going to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like everybody, all of a sudden they notice grocery stores start selling cooked food. You know, they going into the restaurant business. They didn't go into the restaurant business. They decided that they needed to stop losing money on food that's no longer can be sold. So let's say I bring in 100 pounds of greens, and the life cycle of those fresh greens is, let's say, 3 days. So if I only sell 50 pounds of those greens in 3 days, that means I have to throw away 50 pounds. That's a loss. But if at the end of 2.5 days I cook the greens, and then I turn around and sell them, the only thing I have to make on these greens to keep them low, I have to price those greens out enough to be able to get my money that was paid for the 50 pounds and cover the cost of the cooking and the serving, as long as I can break even. Okay. So now you go into grocery stores and everybody is selling food and things like that. That cut their waste time. You know, you can only keep a chicken so long, a raw chicken. Then you got to throw it away.
I never thought about that like that. It's like Big Gregory thing, like you said, it's that way you look around stuff.
Right. You wonder, why would a grocery store get into the restaurant business? Cuts down their loss, stuff they don't have to throw away anymore.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Cause I want how to get rid of certain foods, like especially like bread and stuff like that.
After a certain period of time. You can only keep it a certain period of time. But if at be time, say if I can no longer sell this on a Thursday, all I have to do is cook it on a Wednesday.
Wow.
Okay. And now I have a new period of time that I can keep it. Great.
Yes, sir.
So 3 or 4 years ago, they were celebrating the 150 years of the death of Henry David Thoreau. And I looked at the documentary of that to find out that Henry David Thoreau's mother and father were abolitionists. He was an abolitionist. He got put in jail because he refused to pay his taxes because he said that he refused to pay money to the government and turn around and use it for illicit means, such as supporting slavery. So to keep that from his point of view from being publicized, Ralph Waldo Emerson, which was a good friend of his, went to the jail and bailed him out so the press and everything wouldn't go there. So when I read the story and also read that this guy, Henry David Thoreau, wrote a book called Civil Disobedience. And most people think that Martin Luther King's ideology was based on Gandhi.
Yeah.
It was not. Martin Luther King's Bible about demonstration of the thing was Civil Disobedience, the book that Henry David Thoreau wrote. When I found out that, I wrote a letter to the president of the University of Notre Dame, Hesburgh. I wrote one to the guy who was president, who was in school with me at the time, and said that how disgusted I was because if they would have taken the opportunity to discuss the real Henry David Thoreau on that campus when I was there, I would have felt a kinship to this individual. by saying, here was a guy that was championing my cause. But all you wanted to do is talk about this little jive thing he wrote about Walden Pond. You didn't even want to talk about him doing that civil disobedience and he was against slavery. Okay? Because that would be putting the spotlight on white folks is wrong. You didn't want to spotlight that. You just wanted to spotlight this little thing about it. And I remember I had a world history teacher who flunked me in a course, and then later on I took American history from him. I had to take the course over again from him. And then I had American history from me, flunked me again, and then later on I was up on the campus after I graduated and was married and was visiting the campus. And a guy who was on the track team with me at the time was a track coach at Notre Dame, and we were at this private, called University Club on the campus. And this professor guy by the name of Gleason had come in, and the guy, he said, you know Dr. Gleason, don't you? I said, yeah, I know him. So he called him over. He said, Dr. Gleason, you know Ryan Gregory, don't you? He said, yeah. He said, matter of fact, Mr. Gregory had the distinction of being the worst history teacher student I ever taught. And I said, no, sir, Dr. Gleason, I was not. I was not the worst history student that you ever had. I was the only history teacher, student that you had that refused to allow you to open up my brain and dump that garbage in. And I said, and you go back now, it's a whole lot of stuff that you were teaching then that is no longer in the history books. I say, matter of fact, they don't even talk about George Armstrong Custer anymore in the history, because they know he practiced genocide on the Native American people here. So all that garbage that was in the history book that was taught to you, and you turned around and taught it to your students, I failed to allow you to dump that stuff in my head, even at the expense of getting a bad grade. And he turned around and said to the guy, he said, do you know, if Ryan Gregory had opened his mouth as much in my class and discussed stuff like that then, like he is now, he'd have probably got a good grade. I said, no, I wouldn't have got a good grade from you, because you wouldn't have accepted that crap from me. No, just like I wouldn't accept that crap from you that you were putting in my head, man. And, you know,
would it be fair to say that Henry David Thoreau was your guy like John Brown was Dick's?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and find out that it was amazing how those guys bucked society, but they were of such a, Thoreau was such a status in his community, and that they couldn't deny his brilliance. So what they did is they tried to shut him up. And if you go into a college today or somewhere today and talk to 100 students, I'd venture to say probably less than 2 of them will be aware that Henry David Thoreau wrote a book called Civil Disobedience.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I had never heard of it, man, until this documentary on public TV when he was dead. And I went and got the book, and I said, oh my God. I went to Left Bank Books, and I had to order the book.
Left Bank Books,
yeah. But they got the book, and I said, man, this is unbelievable that this is the book that Martin Luther King based his principle on, about fighting this country for its injustice.
You know, it's interesting, like, Dick was interesting, like he said, I mean, I talked to Joe Battis or something like that.
Yeah.
Like sometimes he said, I can't put Dick on, but what he said eventually becomes true, is correct.
Oh yeah?
Years later, like, he paid a price for being a prophet that tells the truth regardless of the consequences.
Right.
But I know some things they talked about, like the Thurgood Marshall movie just came out this past weekend on Friday. I saw it, it was pretty decent. But he talked about how Thurgood was a snitch.
Yeah.
Was a federal snitch. It is true. But a lot of us don't want to accept that, or even with Alex Haley, we still don't want to accept the fact that he didn't write Roots and was sued over it.
Yeah, he was sued on it because the book was, the white boy wrote the book called The African.
Yeah, Harold Coleman.
Yeah, wrote the book called The African, and he read it, and he said, oh man, this is, God, I didn't realize this, oh, this is great. Now I'm gonna turn around and write me a book, and then talked about how big this cat, Alex Haley, got.
Mm-hmm.
And just a handful of people really knew that he went in court and paid a fortune to this guy about plagiarizing his book. And now they got these computers that you can run. That computer can hit both them books and say, "Oh man, this is running parallel." Yeah.
So I mean, like, even with that, like, people don't. It's like it had to be a frustration to know that your brother exposed all these things, and people still like they don't know what's going on, what time of day it is. You know, like they don't know. Like he was. No, I'm actually like, well. Why do you think people trust Dick so much with so much important information? Like Ron Brown photo of the autopsy, like the Malay massacre.
Yeah.
They exposed that the Kennedy assassination was approved for him.
Yeah.
He was there on Gerardo's show with the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, why do people trust him like that?
Because they know who he is, and they trust him because he's so real. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people's consciousness was so bothering them that they have this information, but they know they can't talk about it. So what they do is they'll take a chance to get it out. I mean, like, they talk about the word whistleblower should be an honorable name.
Right, should.
Okay? But they make it sound like this cat's a snitch. I mean, you want to call a man a snitch who's telling you that here's a company that got people working in dangerous situations and don't want to say anything? And he said, well, he blew the whistle on them. When you blow the whistle on them, you are actually telling the truth about what's going on. But they want to make it sound like it's some dastardly, person. And this thing that's going on in Hollywood. Right,
well, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Weinstein.
That's the same thing that Trump was talking about on the bus.
Grab it, but he's president. And a lot of white women voted for him.
Yeah.
They didn't vote for Hillary, they voted for Trump.
Yeah.
But I realized something. Speaking with women, particularly white women, a lot of them don't like women bosses. They don't like women bosses.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Their attitude about themselves is like the attitude about black people we have about ourselves.
That's deep.
We have become our own worst enemy because we don't realize that we've been taught. Dick said it a long time ago. We're educated to like what white folks like and hate what they hate. They like themselves, we like them. They hate them, they hate black people, we hate black people. It's amazing how we have been damaged psychologically through our teaching. And did you ever read the book called Little Black Sambo?
I heard about the book. I never read it. I know about it.
No. You need to get the book and look at it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because see, in the first grade, I was taught to read out of two books, Little Black Sambo and Fun with Dick and Jane. Okay. In the book of Dick and Jane, there's only 4 things in there that has names. The little boy's name is Dick. The sister's name is Jane. There's a cat in there named Puff, and there's a dog in there named Spot. Those are the only 4 things in that book has names. Everything else has titles: mother, father, grandmother, grandfather. So you don't know whether the grandparents are the mothers on the mother's side or the father's side. But these kids live middle class life, little white picket fence, but because their grandparents sort of live out in the country, that means when they go visit their grandparents, they travel, they go on trips. Okay, Little Black Sambo
It's about a little boy. The little boy was small and his hue was black. They didn't say little white Dick, little white Jane, but they said little black Sambo. His mother's name was not Mother. Her name was Mumbo. She was an adult, so she was big, and her hue was black, so she was Big Black Mumbo. The father's name was Jumbo. He was grown, so he was big. His hue was black, so he was Big Black Jumbo. So that's how the story gets the name. Little Black Sambo. His mother was Big Black Mumbo, and his daddy was Big Black Jumbo. So you referring to the mother and the father by their first names. And in the story, she makes all these little fancy clothes, and he goes out, and when he goes for a walk, there are wild animals out there, and these wild animals mess with him and they take his clothes. But the parents know there are wild animals out there, but they have no remorse about their kids taking a walk out there with these wild animals. And these clothes was taken from the animal, and finally a tiger got after Little Black Sambo, and he runs around a tree to get away from the animal. And if you outrun the tiger turns into butter. If you don't outrun the tiger, then you turn into tiger poop. The little boy outruns the tiger around the tree, and the tiger turns into butter. He scoops up the butter, takes it home, and his parents are so happy to see the butter, but at no time in this book did the parents act they were concerned about the fact that, oh, my son could have been eaten by a tiger because he was chased by a tiger.
Wow.
They were so happy with the butter. And then she immediately started making pancakes, as opposed to crying about her son was chased by a tiger. And they made the pancakes, and they showed this big stack of pancakes that his daddy ate, but they showed this double-sized pancakes that the little boy was eating.
Wow.
And after I read them two stories as a little kid, I never wanted to be a black boy ever in life. Because what I read, it was healthy to be white. It wasn't healthy to be black. And as a result of that, I finally started telling people I felt like I was molested. My mind was molested when I was in the first grade. Okay. But these were not white people who taught me this. These were black teachers who had been taught the same thing. But imagine if my teacher had been a critical thinker like GREgory.
Right.
Okay? I would have never had to read that garbage. Because he said, this is a joke, man. This is unreal. If in Dick and Jane they're mothers and fathers, and in Sambo, it should have been mothers and fathers, whether they're Big Black Jumbo, Big Black Mumbo, and that type of thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask before I go, because I know I saw you spoke on a show with a sister in this area. It was on YouTube, like recently after your brother passed away.
Oh, yeah.
And you made a reference, because I know people that are disciples, they followers of Dick, they're very passionate.
Yeah.
When I heard that he passed away, I was very shocked myself.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people were very shocked. A lot of people were concerned because they said he was getting better, and all of a sudden he just died. And people so used to him being like a Superman. Right. He do all these shows, but I didn't want. I think he had a great explanation about what happened to him.
I said he was like, one of the things I said, my brother was like those steel-belted radio tires that the rubber wore off. And there was nothing but the metal fibers sticking out. And the tire repair people looked down and said, there's nothing we can do with this tire anymore. This tire is gone. And we just have to put it in.
But you know, people so used to like saying, well, he did the health thing, like he ate healthy, he lived a very healthy life, but for all the travel he did like, what, 20 shows a month, something like that? He was doing these shows back to back sometimes.
See, what folks didn't realize, fasting is unhealthy.
Oh, so it's unhealthy, the fast.
Fasting is unhealthy because, see, sometimes he was fasting, he would just drink water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The body requires certain nutrients and things. If you do not give it to the body, it will take it from the body, and
Right.
it will literally eat your own body up. That's what you see when you see people starving.
Uh-huh.
Their body consumes itself. That's where it goes. When you see 100-pound man, you take 100-pound man and put him in a room and don't feed him, his body will eat himself up because it will take the parts. That's
But he lived like to be 84 though. I mean, like, he was 85.
but they say he had the body of a man over 100 years old, man.
But he did that, like, we go back to the kamikaze. He was on a mission,
Oh yeah,
and he did that. It was a sacrifice he made for
oh
humanity.
yeah, you did.
That's deep, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, he did that, but he just, what GREgory did is he wore himself out, man. He just literally wore his body. I talked to him that morning at 11 o'clock
On the 19th, on Saturday?
on the 19th.
How did he sound? He sound like
Bad.
So you like
He sound bad
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks before that. But what they said, they were talking about that he would be out the hospital. That's what people were saying. He'd be out the hospital and would be back on the road because there's something about when he hit that stage and them lights came on, he just came to life.
I know I saw him Mother's Day. He kind of like tired there.
He's been tired.
Yeah, like he been like I'm looking
He's
at the
been
pictures
tired
and
the
stuff.
way he walked.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know, he still had that, but you can't play with Mother Nature, man.
But he already knew what he was doing though, right? He just want to make sure he just left everything out there for the people as much as he could.
Yeah.
Was that the goal?
That's the way it was, man.
Yeah.